All right, this is part 5, I think it was. And this is gonna be a long one too, so buckle up, Buttercup. AKA the fate of Kadok Zeppelimusu that we didn't know till the very end. So next, by the way, this will be audio call for spoiler galore alert. Okay, this will practically going to spoil audio call for, so just be careful if you don't want to hear it. I'll see you in 2 years, all right? And so the interviewer asked, next up, we would like to go back to audio call 4. My head is a little confused because in the last year's interview, you specifically said, audio call 3, you're in for a surprise, I think, is what you said. Is it mean by, what did you mean by that, sir? Nasu answered specifically, yes, that was especially audio call 4. Yep. When I saw the plot, right, when I saw the plot that was made at the moment and I supervised, it's Menzo Ikkaku on top of Mahjong. And even I said to myself, wait, even I won't go that crazy far, is what the first impression was. Lol. But it definitely was when I saw the plot and the story progression. It was around hell. They had a quote unquote Showa, which is like the 80s, right? The 80s apartment, and kind of had like a room share event. I suppose because of the characters that plays those specific roles, I believe we were able to get away with it. So essentially, if you guys don't know, Maison Ikkaku is about like a semi-love story. It's about room sharing and living under living under the same place, kind of a love story to an extent. And Mahjong, if you don't know Mahjong, Mahjong's Mahjong. So we literally had a Mahjong experience in FGO, explaining things left and right, while having like this, like room sharing scenario shenanigans, which were pretty impressive. Even Nasu's like, I won't even go this crazy. But because of the characters that play that role in the quote unquote room sharing, I believe they can get away with it. Then the interviewer says, when you said that, I thought in Ordeal Call 3, MASH was going to become a 5-star, right? Nasu said, that was part of it as well. But I think nobody, これは誰も予測できないだろうとな. Says, I thought and I knew that nobody would have predicted this, parentheses, lol. I think Nasu knew that we would know that MASH would become a 5-star later. And last but not least, Metatron Jannu. The surprise of new Jannu's arrival and utilizing a material called the Great Angel, right? The Great Angel, the Archangel of Metatron. That surprised as well. Because up till now, FGO was doing their very best to try to avoid using angels with angels with names specifically. これまでの FGO は名前のある天使を使うのを避けていましたから。So yeah, it's essentially Metatron Drawn Surprise, 5-star Mass Surprise, and FGO was avoiding using angels with names until now. It says, can you tell us more about MASH becoming a shield paladin, right? Shield, it says paladin, but it's paladin, right? When was this truly planned out from the big, when was this truly planned out? Nasu specifically says, right when the season 2 started, we wanted the final goal for her to become a 5-star. We kind of had that kind of like plopped. In all honesty, we were trying to plan to make her turn into a paladin around LB6 or LB7, but in the end, we come up with a lot of ideas and we made her paladin at the very, very end. ゲームの途中でパラディンにしてしまうと性能がお絵描きになるのであまり使われなくなってしまいます。それならば最後の最後でパラディンにして性能を上げていけばもう終わりも見えているし、上映不満は出ないだろうと考えました。ひいきしているといったような不満は出てないだろうという考えですね。It says, yeah, at the beginning of the season 2, we knew for the fact that she was going to become 5-star. We had a chance to make her LB6, LB7 turn her into Paladin, but in the end, we made her a Paladin at the very end of it. And during the gameplay, if we turn her into Paladin, the capability would be overwritten once more, and she might not get used because of its complexity once more. So we came to the conclusion is why don't we just make her Paladin at the end, raise her potentials and capabilities all the way up. We already see the ending. So we wanted to make sure that there was no uncomfortability or unsatisfactory to her creation. ひいきしているといったような不満は出てないだろう。そういうことの考えです。So it's essentially a lot of people are saying you don't hear people complaining, right? You don't hear complaints about MASH being a 5-star, right? And that was kind of the reason why we did it. Then if that's the case, why did you change your cost to 0 to 16? It says if we were to make her 5-star gimmick into a 0 cost, then the game will completely break. Then the game would break. It's the classic. It's the player's choice. You can use cost 16 and use a awesome mash. You're more than welcome to do so. But if you want to change the cost back to 0, you're more than welcome to use her as a shielder. It is definitely people's decisions, and we let that choose it themselves. あの展開につなげるのはかなり苦労されたのではないんでしょうか。これまでの話でも合成を保つマッシュの助言や情熱を追いかけ、初心を細かく調する必要だったと思います。初めてから決まってたことなので、各シナリオで、知らないを貼っていましたね。最後のゴールへの向かってチェックポイントを名付けていて、マラソンみたいなものですね。ただ、総称4は自分が書いたわけではないので、マッシュ周りはすべて監督して手を入れています。そこにちょうどリリスというキャラクターが爆上してくれたので、ストーリーが分かりやすい形になりました。もともと無人であることは良いことでもあり、悪いことでもあるというテーマだったので、当初から目指していた場所にきっちりたどり着けたと思います。So essentially, interviewer specifically states, in order to hand in hand and line up all these sequence together, I bet you had quite the difficult time. In the story so far, Mash's praise, Mash's helps and feelings and emotions and encouragement words that's been given to her to kind of picture all that and detailedly adjust it to the right place at the right time to showcase in these sort of format. I bet it required a lot of hand-eye coordination and detailed focus. 初めから決めていたことなので、各シナリオでの情報を貼っていきました。最終的なゴールへの向かってチェックポイントを詰めてマラソンみたいなものですね。ただ、総称の4は自分が書いただけのマッシュで終わりです。So it's Nasu answers, we knew from the very get-go that this was going to be the case. So we checked each scenario and we made it happen, right? We checked each scenario. I bet you the reason why we have the CG pictures now is Nasu specifically says, hey, I want the fucking CG on FGO so I can pluck it for Ordeal Call 4. I bet that was the reason why. I bet Nasu said somebody make a function out of that, and somebody said, hey, if we're gonna use this, might as well add it to FGO. I bet you. Because essentially Nasu is saying that we knew for the get-go, you know, like utilizing mashes and utilizing other side characters to help mash push forward emotions, encouragements of words, and etc. In order to reach the final goal, it was a marathon all the way to this point. So we had checkpoints nested for important things. However, Ordeal Call 4 was not written by me, so whenever it came to Mash's stuff, I supervised a lot of it. It says, during that time, the character called Lilith's explosive birth quite helped out. And the story became much more understanding in structure, and it was awesome. Because understand that being innocent is both a good thing and a bad thing was the it was kind of the main theme that we were going for here. So I believe that we were able to quote unquote reach where we were going from the very beginning. Right? It's essentially Nasu saying innocence is good, but innocence is also evil, right? Bad. That was kind of the theme of Ordeal Call 4 in general, including MASH as well. So, and then it says that was the kind of the original objective that we were aiming for. Glad to reach it in there. マシュに対するリリースの立ち回りはイブをそそかした蛇のような印象がありましたね。そうですね。ただリリースは上場しているのは蛇ではなく、極化人の悪魔がベースですね。人間の敵対者というよりは人間の保護者という立場で人間になりたかったけどなれなかった者が抱く感情としてマシュへの憎しみは正当なものだと考えました。先ほどお話した通り何かリリースが嫌いになれないという感覚は物語で終わってみるとああいうパーソナリティならマシュはどうしても認めできなかったのだろうと理解してできるからと思います。So it's essentially interviewer asked, what's the Lilith's, stance around MASH? It almost had a feeling of Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve getting tempted by the snake. It kind of had that impression on me whenever MASH was confronted by Lilith. So Nasu says, I suppose that could be seen as so. However, please do understand that Lilith is not the Old Testament Holy Bible snake, but the origin demon is her base, right? AKA she's Lilith, right? She's technically like the first demon that is the quote unquote based, right? She's not the Old Testament but original demon, right? That's the thing that Nasu's going for. 人間の敵対者というよりは人間の保護者という立場ですね。So like technically Lilith is not the enemy of humanity, right? Like she's not trying to be the enemy of humanity, but she's kind of positioned herself as like a caretaker of humanity or someone that is supposed to guard, right? Because Lilith wanted to become human, but she couldn't. And so she kind of had this feeling of not being able to become humans. And so the hatred that she has towards MASH was justifiable. Is what I thought in mind in making, ideas for her. And like like we discussed before in the interview, Mash stating the fact that she couldn't dislike Lilith. Like I just can't. Mash couldn't bring herself to dislike Lilith or hate Lilith. That it was you will come to the conclusion that for Mash, right, now that the story concludes, right, after the story concludes, it was definitely the with the new personality of Mash, it was something that it was not tolerable by Mash, right? ああいうパーソナリティならマッシュはどうしても起因できなかったのと理解できるからと思う。So it's essentially Nasu is saying that you can't really dislike Lilith. You can't dislike, you can't hate on Lilith because that's that's how she is, right? But Mash never really got along with it because she is the way she is personality. And so like you would understand once you end the story of why each individual feelings have feelings for each other, right? How Lilith hated Mash and Mash in the end kind of disliked Lilith, and that's perfectly fine, right? And it's funny because once Mash started hating Lilith, Lilith started liking Mash a little bit, right? Because it's just like, you finally became a fucking human/servant. It says, can you tell us why Lilith's first impression that she called herself Eileen Adler? Why did she do that? Nasu answers, that was 100% hate towards Mash. She knows right off the bat that Mash was a Sherlock Holmes fan, a big one. And so she wanted to take a stance and kind of, do a dick move to be the lover of Sherlock Holmes and kind of, bully Mash. And however, Mash is saying that that's a lie and kind of ended that whole shebang. It says, next up, we would like to talk about the Shield Paladin design, if you could, please. So Takeuchi says, when it comes to Mash become a paladin, we knew from the very get-go that it was going to occur. We wanted to make it as white, right? Pure white, very clear, purity of white style design, just like a holy knight was kind of our image. That was kind of it. That's it at first. But when we were trying to design her perfectly, we came to the conclusion of what should Mash really look like and how we should go from there. And we had a lot of options to choose from, and we definitely struggled a little bit. And then the interviewer asked, can you tell us the thought process of how you got to the current Mash's design? さては通常の時のデザインの印象が強かったので変えたことで残念だと思われないように細かの注意を払いました。もともと縦のデザインを担当していた小山博和さんと相談しながら順調に決めていましたね。So it says the quote-unquote shield, right, in her normal form, shield design was very impressionable and strong. And we don't want to feel unfortunate or sad or lose any more characteristics on that just because we changed it. And so we definitely kind of honed it in, right? Like in detailed, in a fine line, in a fine tune, in a quote-unquote just like great care, right? Like they kind of just treated it with super respect and super care, and they paid attention to that detail to make sure that it doesn't get messed up. The quote-unquote the shield design by Koyama Hirokazu we also discussed. So it's essentially Ascension 1 Ascension 1 artist for MASH, Takeuchi, was discussing with him as well and coming up with the paladin form very nicely, precisely, and pure, and like really MASH and Holy Knight style. I mean, paladin style slash the quote unquote Holy Knight. And then, if you can, the second noble phantasm, Ray Proof, Ray Proof, right? Ray Proof Kirieraito. Can you tell us about the design on that more specifically? ブラックバケルが変形するギミックがあると聞いて、主張したナスさんがシューティングゲームの自動機みたいな感じにしてほしいと言われましたね。さすがにそれは社内でできるものではなかったので、チョコさん、麦谷光一さんにお願いしました。お忙しい時期だったのですが、そんな面白い話があったら僕がやりますよというすぐいただく引き受けていましただけ。By the way, yeah, Choco made a fucking meme about Choco made a fucking meme about that. That's pretty funny. どれもかっこよかったので、今の資料用にも最終日にやりました。So yeah, please talk about Rayproof Kirieraito's design. Takeuchi says, we heard that there was going to be a change in the Black Barrel gimmick. So when we asked about it, Nasu specifically says, I want the games that you see in the arcade, right? Remember the shooting arcade? Shooting game no jidoki ni naritai. So like he wanted the like what's the word? You know, in shooting games, weapon changes like so cool, like in like Armored Cores and shit and other things. It's essentially Nasu said, hey, I want a shooting game machine gimmick cool shit for the upgraded, change form of Black Barrel. Unfortunately, we were not able to pull such thing in the quote-unquote Type Moon artist slash Studio BB artist slash, Lasengle. So we asked Choco, aka the artist of Melicin and Ruler Melicin. We asked Choco for the design. Choco was in a very busy era, right? Busy time, busy arc, most busy circumstances. However, when we gave the offer, Choco said, that sounds like a fun topic, I'll do it, and quote unquote accepted it wholeheartedly. It says we also had different variants. We had also different variants and ideas. Choco spit it out and we choose it from there. Nasu says a lot of them, and most of them looked so awesome and cool, but we chose the final one that looks very well with her white outfit. パープルの多めの案もありました。ブラックバレルは黒いからかっこいいというイメージがね、かなり悩みましたよね。そうそう、黒を捨てるのはどうなんだろうという気持ちもあったんですけどね。それともパラディンのデザインが白かったので、それに合わせて第2オーグも白くしてもらいました。ただ、変化ギミックまではさすがにお願いしますとは言えなかったので、変化に関してはそれらしく不思議な形でつながれるようにしています。第一のカッテインはアルトリアがセーバーの往生する立ちの姿でやはり意識されていた。いえ、そこまであんまり意識していません。オーグをかっこよく見せることに第一を考えた結果、盾を構えたもっとかっこいい商標が新名だったことなんですね。そこは合わせたって言っとこうよ円卓の騎士としてアーサー王にリスペクトを感じているのはないでしょうか。はは。そういうことでお願いしますSo yeah, it's essentially Choco made it happen. It says, was there any other ideas and suggestions? And then Nasu says, there were a lot more purple in the very first prototype. In the clothing. And then Takeuchi says Black Barrel was black. And because it was black colored completely, jet black, it was awesome. And it kind of looked cool as an image. So we definitely struggled to see if we wanted to turn into purple or completely something else. And then Nasu goes, yep. It says, we definitely had a hard time of feeling of throwing the black color away because it looked cool. Then Takeuchi goes, however, because the paladin design was white, we definitely wanted to, quote unquote, match the design pattern and her second noble phantasm. We decided to go white as well. 変形ギミックまではさすがにお願いしますとは言えなかったので、変形に関しては。It says, unfortunately, when it comes to the transformation gimmick, we could not just say, please please do it and have like an entire change sequence. So when it comes to the transformation, just understand that it mysteriously happens and it works. Yeah, それではお願いしますと言えなかったので、感心してはそれは不思議な形でつながるようになっています。第一のカットインはアルトリア・セーバーの上動される立ち絵ですが。So then interviewer asks, right? The interviewer specifically asks, in the very first Noble Phantasm cut-in, she takes a stance very similar to Artoria's saber. Was that purposefully implemented, or was that talk about it to give forward? Takeuchi goes, no, not at all. We didn't even think about it for a mere second. Our only goal at the very time was to make the Noble Phantasm look really cool. And in the end, we came to the conclusion that if she held the shield the way it did, she would look cool. And that was the honest truth. And it did look cool, so we went with that. So essentially, if you don't know, the very first Noble Phantasm of MASH, and if you look at the cosplay of MASH, remember where she kind of stand like still and then busted out her hands up in the air like she was holding Excalibur, but technically she was supposed to be holding her shield paladin, right? And then yeah, the interviewer specifically asked, was that respect to Artoria? And Takeuchi was like, nah, it just looked cool, and it just kind of made it that way. And then Nasu was like, come on, man, we should have just said we did and just moved on, lol. Takeuchi says, as a Knights of the Round Table, I believe she had respect towards King Arthur. I believe he had respect towards King Arthur, and it became the way it is, parentheses, lol. And then Nasu's like, that's it. Ship it and print it, baby. So yeah, it's essentially the first Ascension. Their goal was to make it super look cool. It just happened to be that, you know, Artoria's stance was the best. And then Nasu was just like, come on, man. Okay, you're supposed to say we did it on purpose. It was intentional. And then Takeuchi's like, I suppose to give respect to the Knights of the Round Table and give respect to the King Arthur. And then Nasu's like, yep, it's exactly it. Ship it. Speaking of the very first Noble Phantasm, the animation showcased 12 pieces of light. Can you explain that? It says, 英雄を呼ぶラウンドテーブルはありますが、もう13番目の席はないよという意識を込めましたね。So it says, we still have, Nasu answers why there was 12 lights. The indication was we still have the round table to summon heroic spirits, but it was also the indication that there is no 13th seat. もう13席、13番目の目の席はないよという意識。So yeah, it's essentially Nasu is saying that there is no more 13th seat. Meaning that Galahad ain't coming. Got him. Hogue の魔人知や演習はすべて小山さんにディレクションしてもらって構成しました。So Takeuchi says when it comes to the first Noble Phantasm, the magical crest, and its animations and motions were all done by the original person who created Mash's shields and its animation gimmicks. So we let Mr. Koyama-san to was all the directions on them, and then made it happen. So the interviewer also asked, what happened to Black Barrel? Could we no longer use the Black Barrel because it is now fused to Mash? Nasu specifically says, yes, we no longer can't use Black Barrel, but we can still, the quote unquote, the functionality, one of the few functionalities of Black Barrel of accomplishment measure. Accomplished measure, right? The accomplished measure to see the life form's value is still capable. So Nasu is saying that we can no longer use Black Barrel because it's part of our Noble Phantasm now, but we can still utilize the life form value indicator accomplishment measure functionality still returns. It says, let's talk about Ordeal Call 4. We finally say goodbye to our Kadok. Was this ending already realized, or was this ending set in stone from the very beginning of Ordeal Call 4? Nasu answers, I told everybody that we should not kill him until the very end. 自分は最後まで殺すなと言ったんですけどね、担当のライターさんがここで退場させますと強く主張していたんですよ。じゃあこういう形で退場しましょうよという話になりました。So Nasu specifically says, I was on a side of not killing him to the very end. But the writer in charge of Ordeal Call 4, the writers in charge of the Ordeal Call 4 specifically had a strong intention to have oh shit, I just said his name, Kadok, to leave in this arc. So then we came up to the topic of then we should make him exit stage left this way, and then the conversation truly started. 割とギリギリまで決まっていませんでしたね。So Takeuchi says whether Kadok lives or dies, we really didn't know till the very end. To the very end, and actually, to be honest with you. 第2部5章までは決まっていたのですが、そこまで進んだところで無理に殺す必要なんかないんじゃないかと物語を仕組んでいくライブ感もあったので、カルデアに根をついた死ぬ必要のないキャラクターは殺さなくてもいいという考えになりましたね。もしろ対象させるのであれば、そのキャラクターに死ぬ意味を与えてほしいとライターさんには伝えて、増益する死んだり、罪を下ろしのために死んだりするのではなく、ああいう形になったんです。So yeah, it's essentially Nasu says we knew for a fact that Kadok was going to survive until LB5. But now that we've gotten this far, we came to the consensus of why not just not kill him? The consensus was we don't have to forcefully kill him off. And as the story went forward, Kadok added an additional live feeling, right? Additional input to it, which was really nice. And we came to the conclusion to the fact that カルデアに根付いた死ぬ必要のないキャラクターを殺さなくてもいいという考えになりました。So we come to the conclusion that if they rooted to Caldea and the character just doesn't need to die, we don't have to kill him right off the bat, or we don't have to kill him in general. Was the thought process that we came to a conclusion for. Because if we wanted to make them retire or leave, we wanted to give the meaning of their death, right? We wanted to give that character their meaningful death. And that's why I wanted, that's why I kind of pressed on the writers to make that character have, aka Kadok, right? And I don't wanted, that's why I don't wanted an insta death or a dying to quote unquote cleanse of sins, or feeling guilty for it, right? Like atone for his sins. I think that's the better word to say it, right? Atone for his sins or instantly die. But he left in that specific shape of that form, right? It's essentially Nasu saying is that he was supposed to live up to LB5, but then come to the conclusion of we shouldn't forcefully kill a character off right off the bat. And then because Kadok kind of gave additional perspective and kind of gave it more lively feature, they didn't want to kill him yet. But if we were going to retire Kadok, we wanted to give him a meaningful death, that his death had some sort of meaning. And that's what we implied to the writers. And that's why, that's what it implied to the writers. And writers wrote that it wasn't an insta death, or it was for atoning his sins and whatever's like that. But it ended up exactly like that specific way that occurs in Ordeal Call 4. 納得のいくものでしたし、未来につながる退場だと思います。ただ悲しいだけで終わるのではなく、世界を救うモチベーションの一つになる、そんな退場ですからね。Then interviewer goes, the way he left was very understandable. After all, I believe it is he left the scene or stage that definitely would connect everybody, including, just essentially, it was exit stage left that connected to the future. And then Nasu answers, the story didn't end as a sad ending. The fact that he left as also another motivation to save the world. So I'm glad that it was the way it was. 総称4ではルーラーとも分かれることになりました。総称2の分かると似ている感じでしたが、意識されていたのでしょうか。おそらく私たちライターの手癖ですね。そうしないとシナリオがまとまらないと考えたのでしょう。本来ルーラーと分かれる必要はありませんでした。手を切るべきはアベンジャーだけで、それは憎しみで戦ってはいけないという意味合いです。オルターエゴはただ理解すればいい。第4章は人類暗決に認められなければならないという指摘がありましたが、書いている最中にライターがそういう感じたのならそれを否定しません。やるべきことさえクリアしていれば名作家さんの代表になるように頑張ってと言った以上はそういう変更はしないようにしていました。So, an interviewer asked, Ordeal Call 4, we had to say goodbye to our rulers. Was this a similar feeling that was with Ordeal Call 2 as well? Can you describe a little bit more in detail? Nasu specifically says, I believe it was just kind of our writers' habits, right? We writers' habits of doing things. AKA, we writer habits of doing things. He probably, the person that's in charge of Ordeal Call 4, said he probably could not have connected the scenario if the conclusion wasn't similar to Ordeal Call 2. In actuality, there was no reason. In actuality, there was no reason for us to leave the ruler. The only ties we needed to cut were Avengers, because the whole meaning was we shouldn't fight with hatred. We shouldn't use hatred to fight. Was kind of the entire meaning of it all. After all, alter ego, all you need to know is understand alter ego, and that was perfectly fine. And during Ordeal Call 4's humanity's human trial, right? Humanity's trial. They have to accept the humanities trial in Ordeal Call 4 as one of the main topics. But during the writing session, if the writer wanted to feel it that way, I was not in a position to deny that, because as long as the criteria has been cleared, I wanted this story to be the I wanted this story to be the writer's best effort. And because I told them to do their best effort, I was not going to change just due to my whim. Essentially, Nasu is saying, technically, we didn't have to say goodbye to our rulers, but the only thing we needed to say goodbye was our Avengers. But if it's just probably writer's habit. If the writer thought that ruler needed to go away, it was the writer's choice, and he respected that. Nasu specifically says, as long as the criteria that we gave the writer, right, that's in charge of the ordeal call, clears it, they can do whatever they want with their story, because we wanted that story to represent their best storytelling. Then the interviewer asked, let's talk about the enemies that showed up in Ordeal Call 4. These angels. Can you tell us the reason why they are so mechanical look-alike? To change the angels into a mechanical being, a wonderful idea was Miss Kaneko Kazuma, the creator of Shin Megami Tensei. I remember her so fondly that she was the first one to kind of bust out this idea. I believe Miss Kaneko, Kaneko-san always says that angels are nothing more than machines that represents the command of the god. 天使は神の命令を代行するだけの機械なものだと語られていました。Yep. The angels are nothing more than a mechanical thing that that does the command of God, is what they have been told. So the angels that comes up in Ordeal Call 4 are technically not real angels. They're essentially utilized by Metatron and their angel armies as a system. So I believe it fitted the theme of a mechanical type design to kind of fit the narrative, right? Essentially saying that in Ordeal Call 4, all the mechanical angels are not real angels. They're just a mechanical system that Metatron utilized to create an angel army, and that's why they come to the decision of mechanical angels is the right call. Also, 100% fucking shout out to Shin Megami Tensei reference for the mechanical angels. And then the interviewer says, the fact that it was very unique that it had no face. Nasu specifically says, they're merely existent to achieve a system, and they're a part of the system, and they are not unique an individual unit. That was the intention of doing so. Takeuchi says, in order to bring out angels in FGO, we definitely needed to create a design that satisfied the fans to an extent. The very first prototype stage of the Angel was a little too mechanical and looked too cheap for too cheap and too mechanical. So the design we have redone and redo multiple times, and we've hurdled a couple of problems in there and came to the shape and size and the conclusion to those forms. So the interviewer asked, what about Metatron Jannu's design? What sort of direction did you give in order for Metatron Jannu to happen? Takeuchi specifically says, if you guys do not know, the Jannu's design was done by me. Jannu's design was done by me all the way through. But in order to make Metatron Jannu, we asked the Fate Apocrypha Jannu writer, Konoe Ototsugu. And that's where the conversation begins. Simultaneously, これまでのジャンルと違う形にするため、少し幼い感じを見た目にしよう。第二の字はいわゆるダメな天使に引き込まれみたいな素材を入れてっていただきました。So it says, in order to do that, we wanted to make sure that this Jannu was different from other Jannus that we've seen before, but still had that familiar feeling as First Ascension. And during the Second Ascension, we kind of created a angel that was useless, right? The little useless, slothful angel that likes to, lock herself away like a neat. Kind of that property added in, and that's kind of how she is born. 打ち合わせの時に俺が究極の BB を作るから君は究極のジャンルを作ってくれと担当さんに伝えました。So Nasu, during the meetup and during the conversation and conference, he specifically said to Wada Arco, I want you to make the quote-unquote ultimate BB. So I want you, aka Konoe Ototsugu, right, the person who draws Jannu in the Fate Apocrypha manga and light novel, quote-unquote, I told him to make the ultimate Jannu for me. And that's what I also told individual writers as well, that describes Ordeal Call and quote-unquote 3 and 4. 究極のジャンヌとなると、じゃあ天使だなとライターさん側がアイデアを出したんですよ。そのためメタトロンを出していいですかと聞かれたので、本物じゃないからいいよと返して生まれました。It says whenever the supreme, right, aka the ultimate Jannu, when that idea came into the play, the writer straight up asked, why don't we go for Angel? And so that side of idea instantly popped up. When that happened, somebody said, what if we use Metatron? Can we use this idea? And when I got asked, I told them, because it's not real, I said the okay and let them have it, right? So essentially, Nasu is saying that the ultimate Jannu is an angel that's not real, right? 聞かれたので、本物じゃないからいいよと返して生まれました。It says, quote unquote, the interviewer asked, if you say it's not real, does the real one exist somewhere? Then Nasu answered, in the FGO world, probably not. ただ、それはあくまで魔術世界の話です。聖堂教やの奥の方へ行けばメタトロンは存在するかもしれません。タイムーンではそういう天使の一般的な意味では天使とは否らないんです。So it says, when it comes to FGO, no. But specifically on FGO, we're specifically talking about the world of mages, right? In the mages of the world, the real one doesn't exist. In the mage world, okay? In the mage world, the real one don't exist. But if you go to the Holy Church, right? If you go to the Holy Church, and perhaps if you go deep into the Holy Church, perhaps maybe there is an existence that is Metatron. Type Moon でそういう天使は一般的な意味での天使とはいなるのです。I said, when it comes to Type Moon, angels, angels in a lot of different meanings are a little different than what it means. 天使は一般的な意味で天使とはいなるのです。Yeah, so it's essentially saying that in Type Moon, the concept of angels is a little irregular, right? It's a little irregular. Type Moon angel concept is a little regular, so please do understand that it's gonna be a little wacky tacky, is what Nasu is saying. Right? Because angels don't exist in Type Moon, quote unquote. Because Type Moon angels are different from the general history angels. That's what they're kind of implying. So Ordeal Call 4. In the final of Ordeal Call 4, Galahad came in and the battle surprise was insane. Nasu says that's right. It says as a video game, right? As a game, a surprise is a must and a need. It says when it comes to Lilith, even if we make her a boss, she's a gotcha servant, so whenever she comes into a pickup, she'll everybody will know right away. It says once they are falsified that beating the Lilith equals the end, while they have that guard down during just the story part surprise and busted out Galahad. It says when it comes to the Noble Phantasm design, can you explain a little bit more about that? Nasu says, by the way, the Noble Phantasm animation actually existed quite a long ago. マシの大元になったシールダーというクラスは、フェイト・ステイ・ナイトの If ストーリーを抱えて、を各劇場版の工作があり、そこで設計されたものなんですよ。月型となったキャラクターはタチエという名前で、少女が使うホークが城を呼び出してビームを放つものでした。その時、Pt.5 さんに書いていただいた絵コンテンツからネタを引き取って、その上でえげつない攻撃防具をすると方向が決まりました。攻撃防具というのも面白いですね。そうですね。守るということは相手を倒すこととはっきり言っているので、そういった空気を読まないクールなところがギャラハッドらしい。本当にランサロットの息子かフォーリナーに関してはドバイの時に同じようにきちんと物語を組み込ますよ。ユーザーさんがこの紙に出るのかと驚いてもらえるものに。Wait, so are you... Hold up! Hold up! Alright, so Nasu says some next level shit. Chat, our summer event might be a foreigner event. Chat, you better prepare your pantyhose. Our summer event might turn into a foreigner event. That's pretty funny. If he's gonna pull another ordeal called Tiki EXD, that would be pretty funny. But anywho, can you tell us the design of the Noble Phantasm? So Nasu specifically says, by the way, the Noble Phantasm animation existed from a very long time. Then Takeuchi specifically says, the Mash that is a shielder that was utilized most of its asset during the Fate Stay Night If story. Bruh, there was a movie planned? Bruh, what the fuck? What happened? Essentially, there was a movie, right, movie script ready for a Fate Stay Night what if story that kind of characterized the MASH Shielder class shenanigans. It says the origin character was Tachie. So if you guys don't know, there was a quote-unquote Fate Stay Night if story of Tachie, which was practically MASH as a Shielder, being like a yandere spooky. And then whenever she uses her noble phantasm, Tachie, aka Proto Mash, she would call upon a castle gate, and from the castle gate, a laser beam would be emitted. When that happened, we let Miss P.F.A.L.Z, right? Pafraza, P.F.A.L.Z, we made her write the artist and the drawing content that she's already gave us as a draft. We utilized that asset and pulled it and made it into an attack noble phantasm was the direction we immediately went for. And then the interviewer specifically says an attack noble phantasm is quite hilarious, isn't it? Nasu specifically says that's right. Galahad specifically stated, whenever you're protecting something, that means you also defeat the enemy, right? Galahad said that specifically. He's such a cool, can't read the atmosphere, is just like, wait. So Nasu says that's right. Galahad states, if you're protecting something or someone, defeating the enemy counts as so. He says it, he says it there too. The fact that he can say those lines without even reading the mood, saying it so cool is Galahad. Is Galahad's personality. Is he really Lancelot's son? As a joke, right? 本当にランスロットの息子か? And then last but not least, Mr. Interviewer here asks a really good question. It says, Ordeal Call 4 is now over, and now we're going back to Antarctica. But I still feel like the Foreigner story has not been completely resolved, in my opinion. And then Nasu goes, when it comes to foreigners, just like Dubai, just like similar to Dubai, Dubai no toki to onaji you ni kichinto, it says just like similar to Dubai, we will implement the story. Just like Dubai, we're going to implement the story inside of things cleanly and properly. The user will probably say, what on earth is happening? Why is it coming at this time? And I'm pretty sure they'll be surprised by it. So there is a confirmation that we're going to have a story of foreigners, right? Nasu just confirmed it at the very last sentence. Simultaneously, if Nasu wants to do it again, our summer event has turned into another foreigner event. So it's a summer, then it's going to be a summer foreigner event, right? So it's going to be like Ordeal Call 5, TEXD. But it's probably somewhere around October. I think it's October. While summer is sus, Nasu and the gang is known to not do the same thing twice, but do the same thing similarly twice. So I can almost tell you that our quote unquote our October, our quote unquote Halloween, that is the perfect timing to kind of give out Foreigner. Because remember, we kind of ended also with the Cinderella. So technically a Foreigner element is implemented in the Cinderella, aka Elizabeth files. So I can definitely see Ordeal Call 5, Halloween Boogaloo, just like Dan said, could be a possibility. Okay. But Trubs doing stuff twice is new for them? Not really. They've always been very good at not doing the same shit again and again, but they're always known for doing the same shit in a different way. So I don't think it's gonna be this summer, just because in the next interview, Nasu specifically talks about how this year's swimsuit event is going to be just comedy. But that does conclude the quote-unquote ordeal call for Nasu Takeuchi interview. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. If you got any questions, do let me know. And what do you guys think? When do you think the Foreigner story will drop? Will it be in October or will it be in summer? I'll see you in the next video. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.